Jiyeon is a talented chef with a bright future. While participating in an international competition, the gas stove won't turn on. She doesn't give up and sets fire to some straw to cook the meat. This not only allows her to win 100,000 euros, but also lands her a position at a top restaurant in France. While heading home to Korea, Jiyeon picks up an antique book for her history-obsessed father. While enjoying a solar eclipse on a plane, her neighbor spills coffee on the book. Hiding in the restroom, she tries to scrub away the stains and reads a few lines of the book when something incredible happens. In an instant, she's transported to a completely different place and trapped. She doesn't understand how she got here or where the plane disappeared to, but that's not the point. Someone is launching arrows at her, miraculously missing them. One of the arrows knocks down the net, allowing her to escape the trap. The threat seems to have passed, but a horseman in antique attire appears before her, not seeming benevolent. Instead of helping her, he aims his bow at her, preparing to shoot. For some unknown reason, he believes her to be an evil spirit and wants to kill Jiyeon, forcing her to flee. Finding herself at the edge of a rocky cliff, Jiyeon realizes she's trapped and there's no escape. Undeterred, the desperate girl threatens the unknown man, revealing a stun gun. Man who turns out to be King doesn't understand what it is and continues shooting at her, eventually hitting her bag. Her attempts to stop the insolent man are futile. Just when it seems he's about to execute her, a traitor appears, shooting the man with an arrow. Wounded, the man loses his balance, and Jiyeon can't hold them both up. The pair fall off a cliff and into the river, where they miraculously survive. On the shore, Jiyeon tends to the man's wound, but he becomes aggressive again. The man, dressed in a strange outfit, claims to be the king of the country and that they are in the Joseon era. Jiyeon dismisses him as crazy or an actor playing his part too well, but Lee Han remains aggressive. Grabbing a knife, he attacks Jiyeon again, and she miraculously fights back, demonstrating her skill with a bladed weapon. She is a master with a knife, but even this doesn't stop the king from trying to kill her. During the struggle, Jiyeon accidentally hits the man on the head, rendering him unconscious. Seizing the opportunity, she ties up the attacker and orders him to obey, or else she will strike him again. While gossip and conspiracies swirl throughout the kingdom, a girl discovers an empty cottage in the forest. The king claims it's his hunting grounds and no place for humans, but Jiyeon still doesn't believe him, dismissing it all as fiction. She's certain it's all part of some kind of performance, but everything around her seems too suspicious. She changes into old but dry clothes when she suddenly hears a noise in the barn. It turns out that a strange girl named Kilgun, with an incredible sense of smell, lives in the empty area. She also talks about the Joseon era and the king, but Jiyeon dismisses this as part of a prank or a failed performance, still refusing to believe she's traveled through time. Having befriended Kilgun, Jiyeon offers to cook dinner. Using natural ingredients, she demonstrates a true culinary masterclass and prepares a stunning dish. Enhanced with the remnants of a sauce she had in her pocket, Jiyeon creates not just a dish, but another masterpiece. Showing compassion, she decides to treat the king, but he believes it's terribly spicy food, which she attempted to poison. Having proven the food's safety, Jiyeon shocks Lee Han and Kai-gun with the richness of its flavor and spices. They realize it's truly delicious, so much so that the man begins to cry and remembers how his mother used to feed him with a spoon. A little later, Lee Han falls asleep, and Jiyeon gives him her blanket, showing her care and attention. The girls head to the river to bathe, but at that moment, the king's servants find a cottage in the forest. They free Lee Han, after which he orders the house burned down, as it's uninhabitable, and Kai-gun disobeys his direct orders. Now his only task is to find the runaway girls and severely punish them both. Kai-gun must be held accountable for disobeying orders, and Jiyeon must be held accountable for her terrible treatment of the king. While bathing in the river, Kilgun and Jiyeon notice people with torches passing nearby. Assuming they're there to help her, Jiyeon calls for help, but her friend begs her not to. It turns out these people are the king's servants, recruiting young women. Hunting through towns and villages, they capture girls to fill the king's harem. Upon learning of this, Jiyeon tries to hide, but it's too late. The girls are captured and thrown into a cage with other women. Jiyeon can't believe it's happening, but she's convinced she's somehow traveled through time. This sends her into a panic, and she screams until the servants gag her. A little later, the secretary conducts a selection process, dividing all the candidates into two categories. Jiyeon doesn't want to become the king's mistress or wife, but she's not chosen because she's 27 and too old for that. Kilgun is only 18, but she pretends to be ugly to avoid being chosen as a bride, like her friend. All those who didn't make it through the selection process now become cooks and must prepare dinner for the guests. Jiyeon approaches cooking with utmost responsibility, but she sees that the other women are intimidated. They cook chaotically and disorganized, which could lead to complete failure. Aspiring to become the head chef of this kitchen, Jiyeon decides to speak with the secretary. She asks for information about the guests, their number, and their tastes so she can prepare a good dinner. Confident in her abilities, Jiyeon offers a deal. If the dinner is delicious, she and the other women will gain their freedom. If not, she will face just punishment. Having become the head chef, Jiyeon divides up the responsibilities and asks to find ingredients. Kilgun's nose helps her find the hidden meat. meat, but the beef is too tough and unsuitable for frying. Then the talented chef remembers a modern cooking technique. Meticulously working with spices and ingredients, she pays special attention to the meat, cooking it in hot water at a temperature no higher than 55 degrees Celsius. The sous vide technique makes the meat tender and delicious, giving Ji-yeon confidence that she and the other cooks will gain their freedom. Soon, Im-sun, the chief secretary and husband of the king's half-sister, arrives at the governor's house along with his father. They are extremely angry, aggressive, and smug people, impossible to please. Seeing the modest dish and its small portion, Im-sun and his father raise a fuss, considering such food a personal insult. The governor and the secretary urgently summon the cooks, threatening to punish them severely, but Ji-yeon stands her ground and defends her dish. She asks to try it, confident that even the most obnoxious customers will enjoy her dinner. After tasting the beef, the chief secretary and his father realize it is the best dish and that they have never tasted anything like it before. However, in a vile act, they declare it horrific and sentence Ji-yeon to death. The governor, after tasting the food, defends the girl and his captive granddaughter, but is left with no choice. He must comply, or his granddaughter will be killed instead of the chef. The servants prepare to execute Ji-yeon when they are suddenly stopped by the king, who has finally found the strange girl. He orders an identical dish prepared for him, as Lee-han is the kingdom's foremost connoisseur of taste. He cannot be deceived and will tell the truth about the dish, regardless of his relationship with the chef. After tasting the beef, the king declares it perfect, so he commutes Ji-yeon's death sentence. Furthermore, he orders the release of all the cooks except for her and Kilgun, as they will be useful in the royal palace. The governor's granddaughter will also be heading to the palace, as this is a personal revenge against the old man who was once behind the exile and death of the king's mother. That evening, Im-sun and Lee-han practice fighting with fans. Meanwhile, Jin proves to Kilgun that she is a girl from the future, living in 2025. She realizes that the ancient book is the cause of the time travel and offers to find it as soon as they have the chance. Soon, the secretary frees the girls and allows them to leave. This is not a gesture of goodwill, but a cunning plan, as a minute later he informs the king that his hostages have escaped. Ji-yeon and Kilgun return to the cliff to look for the bag, but the king and his servants find them first. Lee-han orders the bag to be retrieved, realizing how important it is to the girl, and then throws it into the river so that Ji-yeon will belong exclusively to him. The next morning, they arrive at the royal palace, which finally convinces Ji-yeon that she's traveled back in time. Meeting King Kang's wife, she recalls her history lessons and realizes she's the very woman who will betray Lee Hong and bring about the kingdom's downfall, as she's involved in a secret conspiracy against her husband. Ji-yeon decides to fight for her rights, but the king mocks the girl, orders a sack placed over her head and imprisons her. Meeting with doctors, Lee-han learns he could have died if not for an unknown ointment applied to his wound. He realizes that Ji-yeon saved his life, and whoever she is, he is in her debt. Kang reacts extremely aggressively to the girl's appearance and becomes jealous of the king. Realizing that Ji-yeon could become a threat, Kang begins plotting to have her killed. After speaking with the chief secretary, she asks him to discredit her husband and his decision regarding the exiled governor. That evening, an unknown assailant knocks out several guards to help Kilgun and Ji-yeon. He orchestrates the girl's escape, but it soon becomes clear that it was all a trap orchestrated by the king. Their mysterious savior is the jester, Kong-gil, with whom Kilgun falls in love at first sight. The king decided to put on a show to show that the girls would never be able to escape him. Now they must not only apologize, but also earn the king's trust by cooking him dinner. If Ji-yeon uses the same dish or it tastes bad, he will immediately execute them both. Having turned Kilgun into her assistant, the chef went to the kitchen where 100 cooks were working. All of them were removed to give the girl freedom and space. Kilgun's magical nose helps her find the meat, allowing Ji-yeon to prepare a magical dinner. The king orders Ji-yeon to feed him as if he were a little boy. Each subsequent dish proves so magical that Lee-han forbids even his own wife from entering the room. He is delighted by the flavors and constantly thinks of his late mother, as she was the only one who cared for him so much. A little later, the chief secretary invites Ji-yeon to become friends. He promises to help prevent her from being killed and agrees to find the bag containing her belongings, but she must report on the king's actions and get closer to him. Ji-yeon dislikes court games, but she is forced to agree to a deal to retrieve the bag and the ancient book hidden inside. Soon, the chef returns to the kitchen, but the cooks begin to ruin everything she touches. They plant snakes and cockroaches, break knives, and steal food, all to make her life in the kitchen impossibly difficult. The next morning, Kang continues his secret plot to force the king to execute Ji-yeon. To this end, she sows panic among the officials and forces them to boycott the king. The elders want him to make a decision, but instead of executing her, Lee Hong releases Ji-yeon and grants her the status of royal chef. That same evening, Ji-yeon and Kilgun are given a small house to live in. The next morning, the cooks again hide the food and ruin their knives, unwilling to be led by a girl. Cunningly, Jin declares that they alone are responsible for the food, forcing the cooks to begin cooking to avoid losing their heads. Realizing that the first battle is lost, Kang refuses to give up and turns to the Dowager Queen, Lee Hong's grandmother. She informs the woman that Jen is a ghost and a sorceress who has bewitched the king with her charms and food. The Dowager Queen practically never eats and is an extremely unhealthy gourmet. Considering all these factors, Kang proposes holding a culinary competition so that Jen can prove her skills as the best cook or have her hand chopped off. Upon learning of this, the king decides to personally attend the cooking competition. Considering Considering the conditions insufficiently fair, he announces a new rule. All losers will lose a hand, no matter who it is. Now the real struggle for survival begins among the cooks. As soon as the competition begins, two chefs rush to the kitchen. Pushing Ji-yeon aside, they take almost all the ingredients, leaving her with only scraps. She finds some of the ingredients for her dish, but realizes it's too little. Then a kindly eunuch tells her where to find similar ingredients, and also tells her about the king's grandmother's favorite dish. No one has ever been able to replicate this dish due to its unique flavor and aroma, but if she could master it, it would definitely win the competition. The two chefs use a proven strategy and prepare the royal family's favorite dishes. There's nothing new or surprising about them, but it's better than the complete improvisation that's unfolding on Ji-yeon's table. Kang and the Queen Dowager laugh at the clumsy girl and are certain she'll lose, but Lee Hong, albeit indirectly, defends her. Unsure of the soup recipe, Ji-yeon decides to make the soup her father used to treat her to. After pondering for a long time, she witnesses an argument between two cooks, which gives her the right idea. She realizes the soup's ingredients and asks to go get another one. Kang is categorically against it and proposes the girl be executed immediately for trying to escape. Ji-yeon reminds her that this wasn't in the rules and agrees to have both her hands chopped off if she loses. The girl is allowed to take an extra ingredient, but time is running out and she won't be able to prepare the dish. Trying to get out of the situation, she sends her friend Kilgun to the kitchen. On the way, the girl is attacked by a servant who tries to kill her, but the jester comes to the rescue and saves her. Having received the extra ingredient, Ji-yeon prepares the soup. It seems she has lost compared to two excellent dishes by experienced cooks, but this is not the case. When her grandmother tastes the soup, she is reminded of her mother. The Queen Dowager cannot hold back her tears in delight, as it is the best thing she has ever tasted in her life. Moreover, the theme of the dinner is family, and Ji-yeon handled the task perfectly. The king's grandmother acknowledges that she was the winner of the competition. Recalling the rules of the competition, Lee Hong suggests chopping off the loser's hands, but Ji-yeon intercedes for the chefs and asks for both to be spared. The king is against it, but the grandmother also pleads for mercy, which forces the tyrant to forgive the losers. Afterwards, the chefs apologize to Ji-yeon and agree to work as a team.